Japanese car makers suffered an average of a 20% decline in the biggest car market in the world in the first 6 months of this year. That's Japan's entire automotive industry, down on average 20%. However, the sales declines in China are not restricted only to Japanese automakers. They're also affecting BMW, Mercedes, Audi, and Skoda. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the channel. Great to see you. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Sam Evans. You're watching the Electric Viking. If you've been watching the channel for a while now, you would know that this was coming. Now, I predicted this. I'm sure a lot of you predicted this as well. I know many analysts, well, maybe not many, but some analysts saw this coming. It was fairly obvious this was all going to happen, that automakers would start losing billions of dollars in China. And a lot of people know this. If you're new to the channel, most automakers make more profit in China than they do anywhere else. Now, for example, the Volkswagen Group, the entire group, which includes Audi and a bunch of other brands, they make more profit in China than they do in Europe. In fact, 40% historically of the Volkswagen Group sales come from China, but 50% of their profits come from the area. So you can see how important this car market is. 28 million cars are sold every year in China. In other words, just over 33% of all cars worldwide are sold in the country. However, we've just seen that Nissan sales have continued to free fall in the country. Only days later, we learned that Skoda has dropped some models from its Chinese lineup as sales plummet. In fact, Skoda's sales in China have fallen by 52% this year. 52%. The automakers that are actually doing the best in China, that aren't from China, of course, we're referring to legacy automakers, are actually Mercedes and BMW. But their sales have also fallen. Mercedes sales fell 4% and BMW's fell 5.8%. Now, if you put two and two together, that means Mercedes-Benz sales have fallen by 2% in the United States, where they've been saved by the fact they've sold 360% more EVs this year in the US than they did last year. But they've also fallen by 4% in China. BMW sales fell by 5.8% or nearly 6% to 621,700 vehicles in the quarter. Now you can see here just how important sales are for BMW. That's a very large percentage of BMW's global sales. Mercedes-Benz and BMW said sales in China dropped in the third quarter, but what they didn't say, they claimed it was because of supply chain issues. The truth is that China's consumers are simply moving away from legacy auto. Legacy auto doesn't sell a very high percentage of compelling electric cars. And the electric cars they do sell, in many cases, they've drastically reduced the prices. Many BMW EVs have been reduced by up to 50%. 50%, up to 50% in different dealers across China. Mercedes-Benz says supply chain issues affected its global sales, which fell 4% in the last quarter. Although the company said in a statement that it was still on track to meet its full-year guidance for sales growth. Volumes were impacted by a model changeover to the E-Class and a supply chain bottleneck which constrained availability of the GLC, said the company. However, sales in China actually slumped 12% from a year earlier. BMW did fare better, with only a 6% drop. But automakers are struggling in China. Clearly, it's having a big impact on their profit. And the reason for this is there's weakened demand for legacy auto. Plus, there is more competition than you can imagine. Nissan is saying things like this: we're going to pivot by just sending more vehicles that we're making in China that is basically just sitting in fields gathering dust. We're going to send those outside of China. Other countries will take them, surely, right? That's their plan. We'll see what other automakers do and whether or not they'll have to do what Nissan has done. They may very well have to do so. But Mitsubishi, prime example of what will happen to much of the automotive industry in China over the coming years. They'll simply give up on their assets, which are worth billions of dollars apparently, and walk away. Through September, overall Mercedes sales actually rose 2% to 1.53 million worldwide, while BMW sales rose 5.7% to 1.62 million. But that's on very, very low sales numbers in the coronavirus-affected year of 2022. And the reality is here, those sales numbers are still well below what analysts had expected. Now let me know what your thoughts are in the comments. But either way, these companies are in a fair bit of trouble. And what is going to cause them a huge amount of issues over the next few months is the European Union's probe into EVs made in China by Mercedes, BMW and Audi. Now currently, BMW sells some of its EVs that it makes in China in the European Union. And the European Union is very concerned about that issue. If you want to know more about that, I've got a video about that issue as well. Thank you for watching.